Welcome to Mac and Blue, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona, bringing you the people and businesses that shape the landscape around us. From economic development and developers, underwriters and lenders, architects and engineers, to the very builders and suppliers that bring it all together. Now let's join our hosts, Robert Johnson and JJ Levinsky, aka Mac and Blue.
Good afternoon, everyone. Broadcasting live today, not in studio at the beautiful Mac 6 studio in beautiful Arizona, but I am Robert Johnson, and I am broadcasting from Las Vegas, Nevada, or Nevada, depending on where you're from. He's JJ Levinsky, the guy in the middle of your screen over there. How's it going, JJ?
Good. If it's any consolation, I'm in a basement in Heber City, Utah, so you got a better view than I do.
Are you there willingly, or does somebody have you against your will?
Let's say WhitPro might know where I'm at, but beyond that, no one else does.
Okay, excellent. And we are super excited today to have these other two gentlemen with us. Top of your screen is Rod Cullum. Rod Cullum is a founder and president of Cullum Homes in Scottsdale, Arizona. Glad to have you, Rod.
Well, glad to be here. Looking forward to learning everything Brad has to say.
Yeah.
And that's the other guy. Brad Leavitt is the founder and principal of A Finer Touch, also in Scottsdale, Arizona. Both of these gentlemen are luxury home builders premier. Glad to have you, Brad.
Thanks for having me. And truth be told, Rod's my mentor, so he could take the credit for that.
This is going to be fun. Let's start with Rod. Rod, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started, and a little bit about your company.
Sure. Cullum Homes was founded in 1985 by my wife and I. Really got started from land development, real estate side, and just fell in love with the process of custom designing one-of-a-kind homes from the ground up. So we've been doing it, in Paradise Valley and North Scottsdale market. We're blessed to have, in addition to the one-of-a-kind custom homes, we do projects like we're doing right now, the Phoenician Resort. We're building 51 single-family homes on the golf course there, and in Silverleaf and Desert Mountain, we have projects that offer golf frontage homes as well. So in addition to the homes that are the ones that most people never get to go in, we're building some really great communities as well.
Very good. Very good. How about you, Brad? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and A Finer Touch?
Sure. Yeah, I've been building here in the Valley since 2005. I graduated in construction management up at BYU. I was fortunate early in my career to work at the Omni Mauna Lucia as a project manager, working on that hotel resort, which was some great experience, and then started my firm 9 years ago. So 2013, formally started March of 2013, based here in the Scottsdale Air Park, commercial residential, although that pendulum has swung a little bit more towards high-end residential these last couple of years with supply chain and demand, and have some incredible projects that range from net zero from a building science side all the way to 50,000 square feet on the residential side, which is a pretty big house. So we're kind of all over right now.
Did you say 50,000 square feet for a home?
I posted some drone shots, and people say, "Brad, are you building like a school or so commercial building?" It's a pretty big site. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
That's incredible.
So both of you have tremendous reputations in the industry. I would love to hear how the two of you met. And at the introduction here, you commented that Rod was a mentor to you. Can both of you talk through that through both of your eyes and perspectives? I think the audience would love to hear that.
Yeah, I'll jump in because Rod may not know, at least this part. So when I was at Mauna Lucia, and this is back, I was working for a company by the name of Roland at the time. And Rod had an amazing reputation, was known all throughout Paradise Valley and Scottsdale as, premier builder, which he is. And, had seen him from afar, had met him, or not really met him. I'd been at some networking events. He was there, but he didn't know who I was at the time. But fast forward to, we're part of a group called CBUSA, which is a group of builders, a buy-in group nationally. And Rod actually helped start this group here in Arizona. extremely generous, was always super nice to me and like put his arm around me. In fact, probably one of the biggest influences he had on me is we had seen each other. We were walking in Orlando at the International Business Show. He and his wife Kim were out there, and he was telling me about his Builder 20 group. He's part of Magleby at the time and some other builders. And I know a lot of the Magleby people from my time at BYU, but he's like, Brad, hey, get part of a Builder 20, or like change your career, change mine. You need to do it. And funnily enough, he may not even know this, but a couple months later, a group or a company out of Ohio, Galoni Builders, called me. They had found me through Instagram. The son had been following me, and they were actually the original Builder 20 group. Like they started the very first group nationally in 1994. And then since then, with NHB, they kind of helped formulate these groups, of which, Rod had an amazing group and was fortunate to join them. And so I would attribute, just the times I've reached out to Rod and just asked him questions and, dealing with clients, the emotional roller coaster. He sent me his emotional roller coaster form, right, to communicate. So it's like, it's these things where he just, from being younger, coming in, most of the builders were very cold shouldered to me. Like and they still have been, but Rod's not that way. And he just, I love his passion for construction and doing the right thing and getting into ICF and building science. And, that's just something that our industry has lacked in every way. And so that's my perspective, at least, on the mentorship of Rod. So,
well, Brad, thank you. When I started the business, you learn this industry through a lot of bloody hard knocks, and custom home building is such a difficult experience, not only for the builder, but many times for the homeowner. It's a long journey. When I met Brad, he was working down at the Monte Lucia, building some really nice homes. And we were just starting our Mountain Shadows project just up the street, and we finished that up now. But, my philosophy over the years, there's been a lot of people that have helped me in my early career. This is it's a surprising that the market's so huge. I don't know if Brad and I have ever really competed against each other. And there's a lot of other great builders we have in our CBUSA group that are wonderful custom home builders here in town. And, some of the old timers I don't know if there's any as old as I am, but some of the guys that are really close, we've never competed with each other over 30 years of being in the business right next door to each other. So I've always felt you kind of pull the guy behind you and push the guy in front of you. And the better I can make my competitor, the better our industry will go. And we unfortunately hear so many horror stories about custom home building. And usually it's because the builder and their processes and their team just really aren't prepared to take on a 50,000 square foot or a 20,000 square foot or even a 5,000 square foot ultra custom home. And there is a lot of hard knocks to learn. There's a lot of ways you need to learn how to manage your trade partners, as well as your customer and the whole process. And so when I saw Brad was that kind of person, absolutely, I want to help him. And I'm, right now I'm mentoring my own children in the business, but the market's so big when we get a group of professional builders together and treat each other as professionals, it's just going to make our industry that much better.
Yeah. Hey, Rod, or go ahead, Robert.
No, I was just, you touched on this, and I just wanted to get a bit of a clarification on it. So would you say that most of your business is negotiated, or are you competitively bidding against other builders?
Well, there's a couple different business models in our industry, and one is the client that comes in and wants you to build their home because of your reputation and because of your experience and your. In our case, we have architectural in-house versus a lot of builders like Brad have architectural relationships with multiple architects. So we've taken a little different route than a different path than what Brad's doing, because I'm old enough to live through about 4 down cycles. My first down cycle was something called the RTC that Brad wasn't born yet.
Wow.
And after going through that experience, our industry, I just felt, is broken. There's the mentality of racing to the bottom, trying to beat up your trades to get the absolute last penny out of the trade, and the customer beating you up to get the last penny out of a deal. And I understand that world and, participate to some degree. We're always looking for the best value from our trade
Sure.
partners. As I tell them, I want to make sure you're making money. I just don't want you to buy a new pickup truck on every single job.
Right.
I want you to make
Right.
a reasonable profit. So, when we're out there looking at the industry in whole, I think it's really critical that we reach out and help people like Brad and learn that you have the cost plus builder, you have the fixed price builder, and then you have the builder that builds speculative homes, or we call them for sale models, and they're building homes to sell as soon as they're done. And there's other versions of that in between, but those are primarily what we're competing with. So our customers come to us in our communities because we own and control the community. But on a spot lot, or just an acre lot in Paradise Valley, or 5 acres in North Scottsdale, or whatever it is, we'll often be interviewed for people like the top 8 or 10 builders in town. We often interview against, and all of us have slightly different strategies. And the building process is important. You get along with the builder and you understand their processes, because Brad's heard me say this before, but when you really think about our industry right now, it takes you about a year to design a house and get a permit. And depending on the size of the house, a more normal house in a 50,000 footer, we're telling people it takes you about 18 months to build a 4,000, 5,000 square foot house. And as the larger it gets, we basically add about a month per 1,000 feet. So when you have that length of a relationship, that's from the beginning to the house completing, and then you warranty it for, in our case, we'll service that client for as long as they live in the home. So, I laughingly tell most people when we meet them, you do realize that our personal relationship here, our one-on-one relationship, is going to last longer than the average American marriage. So, so it's all about managing relationships. It's not just about managing, is it framed right or the concrete right? I mean, that's expected. It's really
Sure.
about getting the right builder, the right team as early in the process as you can to get the right results. If you're chasing, that mentality that chases to the bottom, I want the absolute cheapest. I'm not going to speak for Brad, but I can speak for myself. That's not our buyer. We don't usually win that war. We're about building the right value for the right client in the right process.
You find that to be true, Brad, for you as well?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you asked this early on, was the negotiated side. And a lot of this is reputation. A lot of it's market. I mean, there's a lot of circumstances why that's the case. But, we haven't competitively bid a project in probably 4 years. Everything's negotiated because, as Rod said, it's that, fortunately, when you're able to show the value you bring to the client, right? And everything we do, my process is a little bit different than Rod's, is that it is cost plus. I don't do a ton of development, and I'm outsourcing design architecture, which is a little bit different model, but in essence, it's still the same. Where Rod and I agree is it's not a race to the bottom. Is that there's value that he brings, that I bring, that our company brings, our team, our experience. I have very experienced people that work for me that bring a lot of value. They're great communicators. They smile. That's a lot of the feedback we get from our clients and vendors and subcontractors. Like, there's just a different aura, right? And so we want clients that understand that value. The reality is, and Rod alluded to this, is that construction is such a tough industry. It's so hard in so many ways, not just management, but supply chain and, the complexity of building that most people don't realize, and where you can get in trouble as a builder, and warranty. And, every home you finish, your tail gets longer. So there's more exposure.
Yep.
And so you just have to understand it's just risk. Every day, all we do is deal with risk. And we want clients that aren't just looking for the cheapest price, because there's nothing more expensive than a cheap bid, right?
Exactly.
And so, you have to have a clientele, the ideal client that understands that value we bring.
Got it. JJ?
Brad, you stay on cue and we'll have Rod follow up this time. We talked about the process. We could spend 4 hours on the process alone. But Rod, I think or Brad, sorry. Let's start with the customer process, because I think the listener and the viewer would really be intrigued by how each of you handle that customer experience up front, the interview, and then that process of the year of design and permitting. Can you guys go into that a little bit, please?
Sure. You said the key word right there, JJ, is interview. And I think one of the mistakes we make as builders too often is that we're being interviewed on the client by the client, right? If we're, as they're vetting us, but we're not vetting the client, we're not interviewing them. And the thing is, this has to be a two-way relationship. Rod spoke that, look, we're essentially married to our client for 2, 3, 4 years and even longer. And so there has to be an interview process where we understand how to identify the red flags as we're asking these questions. And so in my process, I'm doing all of our business development, all of that vetting. And so it is a process, right? And, for me, being a newer company and fairly young, essentially, is that, social media has been a platform where I can show, the thought leadership side, the system side, like our process, like our people, our core values, like this is who we are. And so essentially it's attracting the right ideal client to some extent, but then there's still that vetting process, not just budget and schedule, but also personality, decision-making, availability. We all know you have to feed the meter. I'm not your bank. So there's these questions that we have to be asking and just understand, their thought process of the relationship of me and how I play into their life, their relationship, and just their value system. And then once we get to that common ground, then we go to the next step of design, architecture, bringing in the right team, which, it can take a year, 18 months, 2 years in design before we even break ground.
Yeah, when you're dealing with the ultra wealthy, which we have the privilege of doing often, you need to learn how they want to handle or how they will handle conflict, because there will be conflict. There will be the drywaller that goes out to start his pickup truck and the battery won't turn over. And some of these guys won't make the decision of, I'll figure out how to get to the job. They'll walk to Checker Auto and buy a new battery and not show up that day. And they'll show up the next day and say, hey, I did everything I could. I just couldn't get it. Or my kid's sick at home. And, we're all on a time schedule. We're all on a budget. And there's going to be days that no one works in your house. And I tell my clients, everyone that's ever bought from me for the last 30 years, I tell them the Big Gulp story. And if you're going to walk into your house on Sunday afternoon and there's a Big Gulp cup, I don't even know if they sell Big Gulps anymore. It's aged me here. There's a Big Gulp cup sitting on your new granite countertop and it's sweated some water out on it. If you feel like you need to call me on a Sunday and, just rake me over the coals because someone left a Big Gulp cup on your brand new granite that, by the way, can be polished out. I mean, it's not the end of the world. If those kind of moments are the end of the world moments for you, please do not build. Especially don't build with me. Don't build with Brad, but just you should not go through this process because some people have expectations you just can't meet. So, we do have the privilege, and I know Brad now, when you get started in this business and you got a pickup truck and a hammer and you throw your license up and you become a builder, you don't know all the things that Brad's learned over the 9 years of doing this and me over the 36 years of doing this. You don't have the perspective to be able to understand that person is not who you want to build for. You want the business and you go take the business and then this eruption happens and you live with that for years and years and years. So our company philosophically is very much about our success with first-time home buyers is very, very low because we come in and we'll tell you stories that you don't want to hear and they don't believe it. And then they meet me at a philanthropic black tie event a year later or 2 years later or 3 years later and go, Rod, will you finish my house? And we go, no, we don't take over projects in the middle of the stream. And then they'll, talk to you about, wow, I should have listened to you. But it's hard. It's really hard, especially when you're doing your first one-of-a-kind home to believe all the things that happen. Not that it's bad. It's all managed. It's how we prepare our customer to what their expectations should be. Because this is a 3-year process that you will have the craziest things happen. None of them, I always tell people we put them together by hand. If we have to take it apart by hand, we'll put it back together by hand. We inspect our product. I know as Brad does it every phase of the construction, and there will be times that something's not flashed right or something happens, but it's not. If you just can't let it be the end of the world moment for the client, and some clients can't accept that, and so those are the clients we don't build for.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump out real quick, take a break for a word from a sponsor.
The way we construct is changing. Technology, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, manufacturing, off-site construction, high-velocity construction. These aren't things you would typically associate with construction. They are at Mac Prefab. The way we construct has changed. Welcome to high-velocity construction. Welcome to Mac Prefab. Build with strength. Sustain with steel.
He says to two wood guys. Let me jump in real quick before we change track. I did get some questions. We have, I don't know if you've seen it, provide a text message for people to number to text questions to a guest. And I got 3 of them this time. I'm going to start with the first one, and then we'll move to JJ for the next one. Next question. Boy, this could go. This is probably going to take up the rest of the program. What advice would you give to someone who is just starting out in custom home building? And any key areas to focus on when starting out? You've touched on some of them, clearly. Let's start with Brad.
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to figure out as a custom builder, right? I would say right now, and maybe I'll take this more to a pricing aspect, is
Okay.
where I've spent a lot of time these last 3 years is really understanding cost plus, right? And understanding how to price a job. And it, Rod mentioned this early on that even in the vetting process, especially when you're young or you're getting your first job, young in business, you get this amazing job. And so you're just going to try and get it without vetting the client. But it's very similar to the pricing structure. A lot of times you want to get your foot in the door. You want to do this without really understanding. But it's a fine line because there's still value. Maybe being young in the career, you don't have the value where you can charge the appropriate price as to when you're a little bit more seasoned and you have the experience or the value that you offer. And now you can demand that price per se. But at the end of the day, we all have to feed our families. We have to keep our doors open. And so many mistakes we make as contractors is not understanding how to estimate properly and price a project. And this is something that I wish I knew earlier in my career, is understanding how to do cost plus effectively, how to field management, the office management, just like a commercial contractor does, how to build proper overhead, the documentation behind it, the lien releases. And so, understanding just your billing process and expectation with the client and how to price a project and then set that clear expectation is huge, because that'll set the tone just for the success of the project, because money is always coming to play with every client. And so my advice would be just find a networking group. For me, Builder 20, as Rod told me to join.
Yep.
But the Builder 20 group, I have 4 builders that all they've done is cost plus, and they've just essentially one-on-one trained me in my controller. This is how you do it. And it's just completely transformed our business financially, benefit of us and our client as well.
Let me jump in before Rod answers, because you've mentioned something a few times, and this is the very next question. With cost plus contracts, does your percentage vary depending on the size of the contract?
Yes and no. So what I'll say is you should always take into consideration the size and the scope. And what I mean by that, if you're doing a remodel that's only going to be 3 months, right, that you're out there, as opposed to maybe a 16-month build, yeah, you should understand what that number is. And you will have some, I'm seeking, as Rod is, the ideal client for me is someone that hasn't built before or hasn't built the first time, they built before. And some of these savvy clients will say, hey, Brad, okay, if I'm doing a $10 million home, your fee needs to be negotiated. And you can make that decision, right, depending on the value in the client. But at the end of the day, yes, depending on scope, duration, you should look at that percentage. You have to understand, and this is really important, is every builder should be job costing and tracking in their database. So job costing every project, understanding your overhead, what that nut is to crack, and then billing accordingly. And one thing we fail to do as builders is they don't create a defined labor rate. And you have to create a labor rate for a superintendent, a coordinator, field engineer, whatever this title is, assistant super, and put that in your contract, because, you have to have the burden rate, which we won't spend a lot of time in this conversation about that, but you have to understand those numbers, make it very clear to the client what you're billing so that you can understand, just every aspect of that billing process.
Perfect. Rod, advice for somebody wanting to get into, yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah,
I think that's the answer.
Who in the right mind would want to be a builder? But At the same time, if you're successful, and it's nothing more rewarding. So someone getting into it, don't get into this business for the money. You can make a great, spectacular living being a home builder, but you have to have the passion for it. You have to have, so if you're just not passionate about seeing a homeowner going into their house and being thrilled with it, if you're doing it just for, the money of it, it's the custom.
Too stressful.
The custom home business probably isn't for you, but at the same time, I'm vastly rewarded with what I've done, and it's been a spectacular ride. So I would first say make sure you have the passion for it. The other is I built a huge house in Paradise Valley. That's a few years ago. It was back in the early '90s. I made $5,000 when I got all done. I made $5,000 and built a multi-million-dollar home. Not a very smart business deal, but I didn't know what I didn't know. I was seat of my pants, just doing what everyone does. They just think, I love it when they say, well, the guy down the street says he can build it for $250. Well, I can build it for $240, and maybe the right number is $400 a foot. And so it's just understanding your business is important, but if you don't have the passion to want to deliver great homes to people and want to deal with people on some of the most personal level, if that's not you and that's not your personality, it's not your business. Now, with all that said, if you have the passion for it, get a few houses under your belt, and then get involved with the National Home Builders Association Builder 20. Seek out people like Brad, who's got 9 and 10 years of experience, or myself that's got 35 years of experience. My daughter and son, who are taking, my son-in-law are taking over our business. We're mentoring, we're succeeding in the business to them over the years. They just got back. Literally, I picked them up at the airport. It's the reason I came down here. I picked them up at the airport today, and they just got back from their Builder 20 meeting. And that's, firms from around the country. Totally different group than I was involved with. So it's really important to seek out advice. Go to get involved with all the professional side. Learn building science. If you're going to be a custom home builder, learn building science. Learn what new materials we're going to be using. I became very familiar with ICF many years ago. We've done, panelized homes over the years. We've done a lot of different products. Our industry is going to change immensely. If you're not really passionate about those things, electrical or wiring in houses are going to totally change with IP addressed light bulb, can lights in houses. I mean, it's constantly changing. What I build today, as I tease my daughter, who's an architect, it's bedrooms and bathrooms and kitchens. They're just moved around differently. Some houses have, no wet bars. Some of them have 7 wet bars. I mean, but it's still a wet bar. And so there's, the magic of putting all this together. You got to remember, it's still someone's home. It's, they're going to come in, they're going to park their garage, they're going to use their kitchen, they're going to go to bed and go back to work. I mean, that's the typical life for our homeowners, it seems like. But they want these great homes that, especially after COVID, the shooting galleries and basketball courts and all kinds of things in their home, because who knows where they're going to get out of it again. So that young person wanting to get in, you have to be passionate about it. And if you are, you'll be successful. You'll learn all the things you need to learn if you'll listen to people who have done it before.
Excellent. JJ?
Yeah. Great advice. Robert, I don't have the list of questions, so but I have one that I want to start with Brad on. And Rod, you touched on it, is let's break away from the process from the technical side, because we could spend 4 weeks on that one alone. I want to talk about the psychology side and the EQ side. Brad, talk to that, because I think our audience would love to hear how much energy and what tools you guys use to handle the psychology and the EQ side for both you dealing with the clients and then also your trade base, like how you transcend that from them downstream. Could you touch on that?
We become numb as a builder. And what I mean by that is it's, the building process to us, to some extent, we understand it, right? We understand the products. It's very mundane in a way, but we become very casual. And for our clients, and even with numbers, as you start looking at budgets that come across, for me, if you're building a $5 million home, as Rod mentioned, and you see a change order come for $700, you're not thinking much of it, just kind of passing through, right? Just token of business. But you're not really, are we putting ourselves in the client's shoes where they get this now and they're looking, well, why am I paying this change, or why am I being charged like 9 hours at this rate when it took them like 2 hours? And so we have to really put ourselves in the customer's shoes and not be so casual with the day-to-day communication. And so this is a continued conversation with our team, is that, in our client's perspective, understand for them, and Rod gave this example of the big gulp, they're walking in, they don't want to see salsa on the floor, food or debris, how are we keeping sites clean, and really thinking about the investment they're putting in. How are we, I had a client, and this goes back to setting clear expectations that no one's going to be on your job every day. A client calls me and says, Brad, I'm paying $100 interest a day and no one's there. And this is like a 14-month build. And they just don't understand the building process. So this goes back to that advice for younger builders that, you don't know what you don't know, but over time, as you've seen these pain points, we have to be sensitive to those. Empathy is really important, to be empathetic to our clients and the stress they're dealing with. And by having that empathy and related to them and listening to them, they're not always right, but we can be empathetic still and find a solution. And so that's something that I've worked on individually, as well as my team, just in that communication process, to just help get through the difficulty that is construction.
Rod, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think customer perspective is always, we all live from a different perspective, including our trade partners. Brad mentioned earlier, I gave him a document. We actually have our customers sign a document, and it's called the emotional roller coaster. And we have key events of the project. And, when they sign the contract, they're super happy. And then it takes 9 months by the time they get a permit, they're like way at the bottom, not all the way to the bottom. And then they come back up and then the framers show up and it looks like the house is going to be done in 3 weeks because they're going so fast and they're getting all excited again. And then they go into the mechanical and all the phases of the construction process. And really where the most emotional moment is right when you're done with the house. It's this beautiful house, but they've been daily. I mean, their endorphins are like, they're like, oh my gosh, you're going to leave me. They just feel that they're going to, all of a sudden it's over when the house is done. I mean, it's really not. I mean, we still have a long service period with them and glad to service great clients, but they go into this withdrawal, this emotional low, that this is over. They don't have anything to work in front of them. And it's really wild to watch that emotion. And we've actually developed and we use it every now and then. We'll take it to a meeting with a customer and say, this is where you're going to go. We want you to know everybody does this. It's okay. Let's keep our comments and let's keep our attitude above the line, and let's not go below the belt with attacking people, because you really will get to a very depressed state almost during construction when you're in the certain phases. So I would tell you that's something that we all need to learn and understand. And I'm sure it's in every business out there. It's not just construction.
Excellent.
Well, what's unique about construction, though, if I just interrupt, Rod, what's funny about that is, like, when you look at manufacturing, everything's built in a factory. A lot of things are behind the scenes. We're not seeing day-to-day building automobiles or food supply chain. Whereas builders, we're having open surgery on the floor, right? Like, this is in the middle of their house, open surgery. They're coming by and everything's exposed. Like, it's just, lack of a better word, a bloodbath at times. And that's where it's just, we have to really understand that what other business are you fully exposed all the time? And it's just, we get it, but sometimes our clients don't.
Robert, what's the next question from our listeners?
Well, I believe this is pertinent to both. Do you both do renovations and remodels? I think I've heard you mention, Brad, remodels, and I know Rod has mentioned renovations. Let's start with Rod. What do you do in the way of renovation / remodel? Yeah,
we do full renovations, predominantly in the we've done them from Ahwatukee to Carefree, but we have a six person renovations division that does, which is a little different of process than new homes. So new home builders typically don't do renovations, but over the years, and mainly when the 2009 crash happened, 2008. There wasn't a whole lot of new homes to build, so we really went heavy into renovations, and and figured out that process and have been doing that. And we'll do, over $12 million this year in renovations.
Amazing. How about you, Brad?
Yeah, so same here. We're primarily new build construction. We do have some renovations. In fact, I have two now. One of them is just under 2 million. One's over 2 million. And so the biggest thing with renovations is just understanding the right project. And what that means is, there is not really a bottom line, but there's a baseline there, right? Where the more complex renovations, and I'm sure Rod would be similar, is that, because we're a general contractor and I'm not self-performing, at least my business, I'm not self-performing every task. So a small kitchen or a small bathroom, I'm not a good fit because I don't have a plumber, electrician, tile guy, or framer on staff that can just go out and I can move them job to job. We're really our strength in renovations is on a bigger project where I can have a bigger framing crew or tile crew, that I'm subcontracting. So someone that's self-performing is going to be great in a remodel, let's just say under 300,000, right? Where they may struggle a little bit on a renovation at 2 million. So you really have to understand, and this goes back to very early in the conversation, the vetting process, understand the scope of work and what it entails to complete that. And then you'll know, if that is a renovation that's either good for me or I should refer that out to a subcontractor or general contractor that, is more capable to complete that for the client at a better value.
Or the builder you want to drive crazy, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Let's take it. One second, Rod. Let me jump in. Let's take one more break for another sponsor spot, and we'll get right back to you.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
We at Cullum Homes, we have an ongoing service division in addition to our renovations division. But if, at Cullum Homes, and I'm sure AFT would do the same thing, if it's something that someone wants done in a home we built, it doesn't matter if it's, $5,000 or whatever, we're going to take care of it. But yeah, when we're running the machine we're running, most of ours is the right client in a right neighborhood. We farm neighborhoods, as we're doing renovations or new homes. If it's right now in Silverleaf, we're building, some homes, and one of the neighbors had a renovation right next to one of our projects, and we hopped in, and it didn't start out to be a big renovation. It just kept growing. But, we thought we were just going to redo the owner's suite, and it turns out we're redoing almost strip it to the studs now. But so we take on projects based on personalities, but the value is typically we're not just going in and redoing one bathroom. It would for one of our clients or one of our customers, but not general public, basically.
Okay, we'll stay with you on this, Rod. I just got one more question here from a listener. What kinds or types of software do you use in your business?
We're on the same system with Brad. We do use a protocol that's called it's Builder Trend, Co-Construct. It's scheduling, mainly selections control for us on our, we're QuickBooks for our accounting software. It integrates with our project control software, but we're using a QuickBooks Builder Pro, I think it's called, on our accounting software, and then CRM system. Pretty much is self-developed. It's not an outside protocol that we're using.
Gotcha. Brad, how about you guys?
Yeah, so similar to Rod, we're using Builder Trend for the project management software, but one thing that we've integrated that we use a lot is Bluebeam. And so the Bluebeam software is something we use heavily, and we've trained our entire team, and they all have iPads, and they have, everything set up with Bluebeam. And that's become really valuable, especially working on, as the projects become more complex and more challenging. We're really big, I'm sure Rod is too, that I don't want to start a project until everything's been decided. Even on a $10 million custom home, we're going to know everything that's going into the house. And regardless, the client's going to make 100 changes, and we're going to change 150 change orders. Like
Brad, let's be honest, Brad. It's more like 1,000 than 100.
it is like it's relentless, and that's okay. It's their dream home, and right now, supply chain things changes. You have to reselect, and that's fine. But you have to have that starting point. But what Bluebeam does now is it's really made it a lot easier because we can layer everything. We can layer the project, and now, Rod has an advantage this way that he does all his architecture in house, and I don't want to throw any of my architects under a bus, but some of our plans seem to be lacking or not at the detail that they should be. And so Bluebeam, we have to become the QC person, and so we can layer things, send it back to our civil engineer, our architect, our design team, and they can make those red lines and changes because what they're designing in some cases can't be built or don't work or page by page differ. And so now we can layer the project. So without getting the complication side of it, it's just Bluebeam has been super beneficial for us.
Yeah, we're using ArchiCAD for our BIM modeling software. So we're designing the home in a floor plan format and a plan format. And as we model that home, every component's been pre-modeled, so the walls tilt up, the roof goes on, so we can see everything in a 3D model. And that's really changed the construction challenges we're having in the field with how to get I always talk to the architects that I've never met the person yet in Arizona that didn't want to have air conditioning in their home.
Wow. Imagine.
So, can you imagine? And so many architectural plans, you get there, they have it drawn, but it doesn't work. I mean, it's not that the tonnage isn't right. You just can't physically get the air managed into a room through the roof structure or through, you just can't do it. And so earlier you can catch that in architecture, the better off. And unfortunately, just as Brad and I have more experience than many builders and, the young architects that, great architects in town that do these kind of homes, they personally don't do it. They have, new people out of the university that, architects aren't really taught. They're taught how to design homes, but not necessarily how to build homes. And so they don't understand some of the spatial connections and things. So that is really one of the big challenges we have in our industry is that design, wanting to push the envelope, but not really understanding how it has to be built when you do that.
Gotcha. We have real quick, JJ, we have a question from Elena, who is a listener. She wants to know where you're supposed to send ideas for potential guests. So that one I'll answer. You can go to www.macandblue.com. Spell out the word and spell blue, BLEU. You can reach us there. Go ahead, JJ.
So you guys are here because you're two tremendous individuals, but you guys also build some really cool stuff. And
Very cool.
and you both highlighted on it. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't give our listeners and viewers a little dabble into, let's call it the cool stuff. So as amenities have grown and disposable income and access to crazy things has become more and more prevalent, without giving away clients' proprietary secrets, we'd love to hear both of you share some of the crazy things you're either working on or things that you're seeing that are coming from some clients that have challenged you to give them the ultimate dream. Go ahead, Rod.
Well, over the years, we've built the typical indoor underground basketball courts. One of the more, and you go to our website, you can see a house we built in Desert Mountain that has a 7-car underground parking garage. It's all glass. You can have your Ferraris and different cars, and it actually brought from an elevator from your regular garage down into the basement. And we have a golf center, and one of the new technologies that people are going to is the quad TVs, where you have 4 85-inch TVs on the wall instead of having projectors. It's actually less expensive and a better option for TVs now. The Ketra lighting and the IP lighting products that are coming in is going to totally change how homes are lit at all price levels of homes. We've done indoor bowling lanes, indoor shooting galleries, some just crazy showers that, it's like you could have the whole basketball team in there at once if you want. So I would say those are some of the more unique things. And the thing that's really changing, a lot of technology is changing in the kitchen right now with the sous vide kitchens and speed ovens. And I think you're going to see that again at all price range. It's going to change.
Speed ovens.
Yeah. So a speed oven is a combination of a microwave and a regular conventional convection oven. And
Wow.
So it does can get the process done quicker. Typically, it involves steam because the microwave will dry things out and the steam will bring it back. So, and so we're seeing some of those products that we're incorporating. The other thing that's happening in houses, the amount of freezer space in a kitchen is dropping. The amount of refrigeration space is going up. Fresh cooking is really a big part of it, and that's more about refrigerating things instead of freezing them. So other than your ice cream and your vodka, they don't use a freezer very much in a lot of our homes.
How about you, Brad?
Yeah, so along those lines, I won't reiterate anything Rod said, especially from the technology side, but we do have an amazing project right now where they have a lazy river that it goes under a cantilever deck. So the whole water, there's a 4-pool water system all surrounded by fire, and it goes under a cantilever deck. And you're talking these exposed steel, massive structure, trampoline barn where they have a 5,000 square foot barn with a projector and mezzanine level and 4 Olympic-sized trampolines that they could jump in. And along that line, they have the catcher system, the catcher lighting, which is an amazing, probably the value of the automation and lighting architecture on this house is more than most homes in the Valley. But then we have other homes similar, 50 caliber underground gun range. And, one right now that I was just on today that we're working through the design that we'll be breaking ground on here end of this year is they're building a racetrack, like their own go-kart track. And, part of this is they want this full experience. So they have this amazing exterior structure with the entire second floor is all out of acrylic. So it's see-through flooring on steel. They have 4 full-size pickleball courts, a video game room, the movie theater, and then the go-kart track. There's also Lazy River on this project, but the go-kart track will go under the Lazy River and then it'll go around the barn and stuff. And so just some neat things that, that stuff you always dreamt about, but you never think you'd be building. And here we are building them now. So.
Sure. Now, so you touch on something that made me think about this. We have beautiful weather in Phoenix, the Phoenix area. I would think that there is an emphasis, or maybe more emphasis now, on outside landscaping, water features, things like that than maybe in the past. Is that more prevalent now? Let's start with you, Brad.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty prevalent here, but COVID changed a lot of things. I mean, I'm sure Rod would agree that after the recession, after doing Monte Lucia, I didn't see the big houses coming back, in these, oversized rooms and stuff. And when the lockdown happened, I mean, people just changed everyone's perspective that I need 2 offices now, his and her, like double spouse office, and maybe a kid's office even for Zoom school, right? And then that indoor outdoor living, that resort feel. So these things that clients weren't doing before, they are doing now, because if they can't travel, they might as well enjoy those amenities at home. And a lot of our clients do travel. Like they spend time at the Montage or Four Seasons, and they're like, Brad, our design intent is to bring that Montage or spa feeling into our house and to create this safe area, this safe zone.
Amazing. Rod, how about you?
Oh, I agree. We started in the 2012, we started doing lock and leave luxury homes, and that's kind of what we became known for. And our Phoenician project is, they're small lots, but it used to be people would come in and go, well, I really want to try to stay at, 3,000 feet, and they'd never get there. They'd end up at 35. Well, now that's even moved. They're now saying, okay, I know I can't live in less than 4, which is, huge. And they end up, 58. And we just see this huge push for these compounding type living homes that the extended family can come together if it's ever needed again. And so I agree with Brad. I really thought in the last crash, we would not see mega houses at the level we saw them. And we've exceeded anything that was even before crash now.
Amazing.
It's 12. 12 is, it used to say 5 was the old 10. Well, I think now the 10 now it's gone to 20 or 25.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
Probably an understatement, Rod, but we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
You guys touched on a lot of the technology. I think we should touch on this just to at least get an insight, because we could spend hours on it alone, but it's insight on technology from both your perspective. Smart homes have been around for a long time. You guys talked about the lighting changes, but Brad and Rod, if you could just take a deeper dive and let the listeners and viewers know what else is coming on the integration side of the homes with AR, VR, metaverse, anything like that. Are you guys seeing that push come to the elite luxury home? Brad?
Yeah, I mean, just to that point now, and I know Rod's doing some, as are we, like Delos, right? So I mean, even just from a healthy living, so air purification, water purification, understanding VOCs, the volatile content that, the off gassing from furniture you're buying, from painting the house, and just being in these as homes become tighter, understanding, like Rod said, understanding building science. And now these systems, our clients are very aware of that. They're aware of sustainability. They, you look at right now with the grid, right? We're having issues all throughout. The grid hasn't been maintained nationally anywhere. And so with all the influx of people, especially in Arizona, it creates this issue. And how are we cleaning energy and, battery backup and, solar? I mean, all these things come into play with, net zero as well as everything else.
Rod?
Yeah, I think the technology is what gets a lot of the sizzle, but I think really what's changing, our industry is changing into health and wellness. We've been doing it for years with indoor air exchangers and indoor air quality, but it's reached a new plateau with COVID. But if you live in a house that's got a layer of dust in the dining room table, that's what you're breathing in every night you're sleeping. So we really have concentrated on health and wellness, and there's great building products and building science products like ICF and the steel built, and the air tightness of our homes with the different foam installations we're using. And when you do that, you have to be worried about indoor air quality. You got about fresh air exchanges. So the stuff that's going to hit the market and technology, homes that'll have electronic locks that you walk up to the door, it'll recognize you and it'll unlock it for you without ever using a key. And there's some really cool stuff with technology out there, if they can ever get the chips to complete them.
Boy, that's the truth.
Get in line with everyone else, Rod.
We're doing. I'm involved with a company that's coming out with a leak detection system that will shut off the house if there's a drop of water that leaks, and if the house potentially has a freeze issue. And how many homes have it's 25% of the industry is paid out in insurance as leaks interior to the home. So there's a lot of things that are coming down with artificial intelligence technology, and just the level and how that cost has driven itself down. Where I am Ketra's the leading edge of this, but lighting in your home is how we wire homes. I don't know if it's 5 or 10 years from now, we're not going to be wiring homes the same way we're doing it, because every light bulb in the house, every can in the house will have its own address, and the signal will come right down the Romex, and it'll tell that light to come on at a certain level and go to. And that technology, quick story, when I started doing LED in 2012, LED lights in 2012, the only ones you could buy were either these I was paying $110 a bulb to put LED lights in. But I did that because they were Edison-based bulbs. Most of the LED light came out as an iode on a flat board. Well, I didn't want to put those into my houses because in my opinion, in 5 to 10 years, they were going to be, everything's going to go Edison. But there's billions and billions of bulbs out there that were Edison, incandescent, that would go to Edison base. So I paid the $110, which is about the same price as putting the other fixture in, and bought the light bulbs so that people could change. That kind of, it's transformative of what LED has done to homes. And that's going to go to the next level in the next 5 to 10 years. And
absolutely.
And you talk about the grid, LED versus incandescent, we're still having to rate our houses based on incandescent bulbs, and you can't even buy an incandescent bulb. So we need to get the building industry to catch up, because we're we're over amping our houses, if you will, because we still have to use incandescent calculations, where an LED bulb would cut our actual use of that house is cut by, by 20, at least 80% less in a LED to an incandescent. So those kind of changes in technology will be transformative for not only our power grid, but how people live in homes.
I agree. We're down to just a few minutes left, and so I want to give enough time here. Brad, I'm going to start with you. Shameless plug time. Brad has a podcast called the AFT Construction Podcast. Very popular, very well done. If you're not listening to it or subscribe to it, you need to. How can people get a hold of you? What else do we need to know about you? Tell us a little bit about how people can reach you and engage you in whatever.
Sure. So you mentioned the podcast. So any podcast platform, search AFT Construction Podcast or Brad Leavitt, should pop right up. To be simple, all of our handles, the Finer Touch Construction, is just AFT Construction. So our website, aftconstruction.com, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, they're all AFT Construction. I manage our social media, so you can find me there. If you want to direct connect with me, Instagram, AFT Construction, or it's AFT_construction on Instagram, or on LinkedIn, just search Brad Leavitt, and I should come up.
So when it comes to social media, when I grow up, I want to be just like you, Brad.
we all aspire to be like Brad when it comes to social media.
That's the truth. Rod, how do people get a hold of you, Rod, and any particular way and that they should reach out?
Well, just to joke with Brad a little bit. What's social media? No. We're on all the same platforms. It's Cullum Homes, CULLUM.com, CullumHomes.com, and that'll drive you to all of our great homes we've built, pictures of homes, and we're also on. I don't think we're on TikToks, but
just Rod's on TikTok, not the company.
Yeah, exactly. Well, gentlemen, for the listeners, take some time, peruse both of these guys, their work, their websites, their homes. You'll be blown away. I cannot thank you enough for being on. It's been absolutely phenomenal, just like we thought it was going to be. JJ, do you have anything you want to add real quick?
No, I mean, I look up to you two as a fellow, I'm on the commercial side, but I look up to you guys as fellow mentors and peers in the group. And it's been an absolute joy to have two of the rocks of our valley on our podcast today. So thank you. And thanks for sharing your stories with our listeners and viewers.
Absolutely. And thank you, Daryl. Daryl didn't get a shout out this week. Daryl Robinson, our producer, did a phenomenal job getting all this put together at the last minute. Daryl, thank you. Take us out of here. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Mac Prefab and Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Robert Johnson and JJ Levensky on LinkedIn and Instagram. And tune in live every first and third Thursday at 3 p.m. as we continue to introduce you to the people building Arizona. Walt Disney said, "You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality." Until next time, make it a great day.